The question of valuing our marriage over like other relationships or friendships was never a question.
Yeah, that's just like not a question. Like we're willing to not have contact with anybody for the sake of our spouse.
We do view marriage as being one of those things where it's like, well, I know who I'm siding with.
What are the areas of these gals that you don't want me becoming like? Why is that? Is it because you feel like they're rubbing off on me? And even though a lot of it was actually just rooted in insecurity, he heard me out.
I think we've always had that mindset. Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the podcast. As always, we are thrilled to be sitting here talking to you all about a subject that has gone in and out of being very important in our lives to being less important at times. And that is the subject of friendships and socialization when it comes to the preferences of your spouses. I don't even know how you'd say it. Well, wait, it's actually a question that we got. And so, some spouses are more extroverted than their spouse, while others are more introverted. Am I right?
You're right. You're right. You're doing great.
Oh, man. Yeah, we should probably just go ahead and jump to the question. But I did want to say thank you all so much for taking the time to leave ratings and reviews on iTunes and on Spotify, on Google, or on any of the platforms, because that literally is like that's our fuel. That's our lifeline. And as Katie and I are doing more and more of these podcasts, it's a blessing to us that it's reaching more people. And that's because of you all leaving ratings and reviews and sharing it on whatever social media platforms you might have, or just telling friends about it. So thank you all so much. It really does mean the world to us. Because as we've said before, like that takes time. It takes time to go do that, and it's effort. And so we appreciate it when you take that time and put forth that effort to encourage us and support what we're doing. We'll get this rolling.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
Okay, so we are going to read a couple questions that we got, and thank you for submitting your questions. So since we aren't on Instagram anymore doing the Q&A Monday, we have a little question box feature on our website. You can access it in the link below. And we thought maybe, we get 2 or 3 questions over there because it's just not as easy to access as Instagram is, and you guys delivered with the questions. We were reading for a long time tonight, and quite a few came up when it came to friendships. So that's what we're going to address tonight. I wanted something very chill and easy because we've got enough going on in our life tonight without a complicated podcast episode. But there were some really quick questions on there, like, oh, Katie, where did you get your white turtleneck? Or where do you buy your supplements? Or where are your favorite recipes? Where do you access those? And so not all, but a handful of the quick questions that you guys asked, it'll be easier to access as a link. And so we are going to share those in Top 5 Tuesday this week. So if you're already in Top 5 Tuesday, or subscribed, how do you say that?
Yeah, either way, if you're in it, if you're subscribed, if you're a part of.
That's where you guys will get those links. And we're just going to try to do that going forward for those quicker link-based questions, because it's just audio isn't a great way to tell you guys where to go. https://www.
Yeah, I think what we would probably say is like we linked it below.
Yes. But when you're listening to a podcast, depending on how you're listening to it, it can kind of be hard to go link below.
It gets lost, no doubt.
Yes. One question we did get asked too, these are all the questions we are not answering, so no, was where do you sign up for Top 5 Tuesday? And that's the link on our website. So you could just go to nowthatwe'reafamily.com and you will find it. It's on the homepage. It's on the contact us. It's all over there. But if you do want to go to the description box, we will also have a link there.
Nice.
For you guys to sign up.
While you're at it, you just want to talk out what that
URL is?
Yeah, URL is.
No.
All right. So are you going to read these? I'm excited.
Oh, yeah. Okay, the questions. Okay. Then, by the way, it was just so encouraging. Some of you guys wrote really long, encouraging, sweet messages with your questions.
That is a new feature of our website versus Instagram, is because Instagram limits your, character number for questions. And with this, people are able to give a lot of context, and so you can be very brief and very short, or you can kind of tell us more about yourself, which is pretty fun to hear.
It's fun to hear from you guys
about the context of our listeners.
Yeah. Okay. So this question stems from what is a bad relationship? How do you navigate non-Christian friendships? How to navigate differences in social needs among spouses? this gal is a social butterfly and her husband's not. And she says she often feels frustrated because she'd love to host more or go out together more often. It sounds like that's not his cup of tea. What do I do if my husband does not approve of some of my girlfriends? Should we only have common friends? How do we help our children make positive friendships? How do I identify a bad influence?
Whoa.
I mean, there were a lot of questions here.
One at a time. Let's go.
And then, we got a few questions too. What do you do for your children's friendships? Do you organize play dates or not? Do you hang out with other families and have family friends? Do you have just Christian friendships or non-Christian friendships too? So we're just going to kind of spitball here, talk about the concept of friendship. We have another episode on friendship. We will link in the description notes if you're the kind of person that wants to go check the description box.
Yeah, you talked at the beginning like it was only aliens that are able to find links in the description.
Well, I'm pretty bad at it actually with podcast show notes and stuff. Usually because I think I listen to podcasts when I'm in the shower and on my computer. So like my hands are always wet.
Yes.
My computer doesn't work very well because of that too. Trying to find show notes in a description box.
Yeah, that's why your keyboard's always broken.
It is.
Haven't taken it.
Yeah. So if you are like me, sorry. But we'll just talk about this a little bit. How do we navigate differences in social needs among spouses? Let's start there.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'd say that in general, you and I are, again, this is my perspective. I think we're pretty similar on what our preferences are when it comes to social interactions, to friendships, outside of family, and just like public interactions, getting out and doing social events. I think that in general, we're pretty like-minded, but we do ebb and flow. We've ebbed and flowed throughout the last, 8 years of our marriage as to maybe there were being times where I had the desire to be a little bit more social and you would have a desire to be a little bit more social.
Yeah, it's rare we're on the same wavelength in terms of like we both want to be super social when it comes to being more social.
Yeah, I'd say we're commonly on the same wavelength when it comes to our...
Not being social.
So what you said, you don't think we're on the same wavelength very often with this?
No, sorry. When it comes to being more social. So like sometimes one of us will get the bug to like really be social a lot.
Yes.
And I don't know where it quite comes from, but it usually just hits one of us. And one of us really wants to get out of the house. We really want to visit with other people. We want to put dinners on the calendar or play dates on the calendar, outside activities. And it's rarely the other person feeling the same thing. We do, however, usually align in like our daily rhythm of not wanting to be super social.
Yeah, I'd say like most of the time we're aligned on like we need to do way less. We're both like, getting to the end of the day, we're like, okay, let's pull the calendar out and start saying some no's,
But then when it comes to it, we want to cut different activities. You know what I'm saying? So I'll be like, I really want to do this activity. And you're like, okay. So we end up saying yes to things for each other, and then we end up being super social.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that might be more of a common scenario where in general, our desire for socialization is similar, but it's just what we deem as being worthy of our time, or, something that we want to put our time towards.
Yeah. So it's a little tricky that way. I mean, how do we navigate it? I think Elisha and I both do social engagements for each other. Big time.
Yes.
So if someone wants to, really means a lot and they really want to go to home group that night and the other person's not feeling it, then we'll go do it. But I would say we do it the other way too. If one of us really wants to have a family over for dinner and the other person's kind of wiped out, often we'll compromise on that and have the family over. But there's other times when I guess one of us wants to go do something socially and we opt out because the other spouse is too wiped out and really doesn't want to go.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's funny as you're saying this, I'm thinking of like more recent things like the last quarter where it does feel like it has been a very back and forth like that where, and anybody that listens to our podcast knows that like we are not advocates of keeping score or doing this whole 50-50 thing, or quid pro quo in marriage. And yet
we kind of do that socially.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's like, okay, you did this thing for me. You had my friend over. I will host your friend and their family. We do kind of do that, but it is out of love. I don't feel like this is an area in our marriage where we're doing it from a place of, I don't know. It is tit for tat, but it's not.
There's no
super negative, I guess.
No, and it's not begrudging ever.
No, it's not begrudging.
And it's
more just appreciating that the love someone extended. It's like, I know you really extended yourself for me here. You overextended yourself, and I love you a lot, and I'm willing to do that for you too.
And I do think that the person that is the advocate for the particular social occasion we both have gotten good at articulating why it means something to us. And since we care about each other, once you hear how it means something important to that person, you're like, okay, I can get behind that. And you could still, stand by not preferring to do it or saying I'd rather spend my evening doing something else. But once you see or once you hear how the other person values it and why they value it, I do think it is a lot easier to get on board. Be like, oh well, I love my spouse and they care about this, and so I'm gonna support it.
Well, I think too, we have been very specific in each one of these instances. Like, it has really meant a lot to us. It hasn't just been like this ongoing thing. I can see it getting fatiguing and a spouse getting burned out if you're like, I just want to have my girlfriends over all the time. Or like, I just want to go out, every Thursday night or every Friday night or whatever, and I want you to go. And they're like, I don't really want to get in this routine. That is not, I'm a homebody or whatever. That could be really hard. That's not what we're talking about here. We have like one-off instances that have meant a lot to the other person. And so we're just in this season right now.
That's a good point, because all the scenarios I'm thinking of, and I'm sure they're the same scenarios you're thinking of, are one-offs. It's a one-time thing, and we both know that. It's not a commitment to, hey, like you said, every Friday I want to do this, or once a week I want to have this group over to our house. Like, I really want to host a small group every Tuesday night at our house. That's a huge deal. You need to be aligned on something like that. And we've gone through seasons where I think, looking back, there have been times where maybe one of us was a little bit more, gung-ho for hosting social things on a regular basis. Probably me, because I didn't have to bear the brunt of the hosting.
You help a lot, though.
But I say, as of late, that's not been what the theme is. I think we are very aligned on what our weekly commitments are and what the reoccurring, commitments are. I think we're very aligned on those, and they're equally advantageous to us, and they are just beneficial in general to our family.
Yeah, so we're really cautious on what we have consistently in our home. We've talked about this before, but our Tuesday night home group, Sunday night fellowship time, we often go up skiing Friday or Saturday, and we see a lot of friends up there on the mountain. We go through seasons where we pretty consistently host a family for dinner once a week. We are in a season right now where we have not been consistent with that. We've had a lot of other things just pulling at us right now, and so we haven't been able to swing that. But that is something that we align on often, is having a family over.
Okay, though, real quick, Katie, babe, there's something that I want you to read to me. Will you do that right now?
Now's the perfect time.
Great.
Elisha, did you know that mRNA vaccines are approved and in use for pigs in the U.S.? I bet you didn't. The mystery continues to grow in the meat industry, and every day I'm more thankful for our Good Rancher subscription. That's actually true.
It is true.
Yes, I don't want experimental things in the meat. I feed my family. Okay, during their Say MR No to mRNA sale, is that supposed to be...
Say that one more time.
During their Say mRNO to mRNA sale. I feel like I'm missing something, but it sounds good. Good Ranchers is offering you a free 10-pound Easter ham with any subscription. Their ham is fantastic. We got one for Thanksgiving.
Oh, that was next level. I felt like a king.
It was so good.
Yeah, so good.
Okay, and it makes sense because I just was reading this. They sent it to us as a gift, Good Ranchers, which was such a blessing. And it says here in this ad copy, this is $119 ham that you will get for free with our code VOTEBERG. Yeah.
What?
Yes, they'll get it free. Okay, go to goodranchers.com today and say MR no for your meat. if you'd like. You can also just buy a box and get the ham. During this sale, every subscription enjoys $25 off any box, a free $119 heritage ham. I know the bacon got a lot of you guys, so this ham's going to get the ones who weren't excited about the bacon, unless you're kosher. And the Good Ranchers lifetime quality commitment. They're promised to never compromise on quality. Okay. Really awesome stuff here. Okay, go to goodranchers.com. Use our code VOTEBERG to get your free Easter ham today. Make sure you order it in time for March 31st. Again, that's goodranchers.com, code VOTEBERG. Sometimes it will just be, I connect with a couple more, or Elisha connects with the guy more, or whatever. And sometimes, every once in a while, we hit it off with both people and we're both feeling the same type of social interaction at the same time. But That's just as much of a ministry as it is a friendship enjoyment time, I guess, those dinners.
No doubt. And once again, I do think when you are on the same page with your spouse, you can both see the benefit of being hospitable from a place of giving, being like, hey, like we really want to reach out to this family or this couple. And this is what's bizarre. Even when you have that mindset, 9 times out of 10, you do it and you're like, well, that was a bigger bless. Like, I'm pretty sure we were on the receiving end of that. That's what's pretty cool about going out of your way to host people or to host events. You gonna cough again? I tell you what, you got the bug.
No, I'm good.
In your throat or something.
I have a dry throat right now.
And so, yeah, I do think that just communication, there we are, comes back to communication, being on the same page, and then truly desiring to understand and know your spouse and what it is that they are interested in a particular social engagement or friendship. But I will say this too, before, I know you've got some notes that you want to move on to.
No, I'm not in a rush.
You and I are both extremely reluctant to commit to any weekly events.
Yeah.
I mean, weekly commitments. You brought up Tuesday night and you brought up obviously the Lord's Day gathering, like Sunday church. And it's like, we are committed to those things. And obviously, the Lord's Day gathering is like the first commitment, but Tuesday seems like at times you're like, wow, can we commit to a weekly,
It comes around quick.
It comes around quick. And I love my monthly commitments.
We have a lot of those, it feels like.
Yeah, and those
then
come
it becomes a weekly
too.
commitment. I feel like we have an extra monthly commitment every week right now.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy is it's easy for that to be a weekly commitment for each one of those things, not just a monthly commitment.
So what are some of your monthly commitments you like?
At our church, we do a father-son event once a month, which is great. And that me and the boys go out. We love that. And then I've got book club once a month. And I love that because there is some consistency. You do find a routine and a pattern, and you get some consistency in these friendships. But it doesn't feel like this weekly interruption where you're like, oh man, I'm just getting into the rhythm, and then we're pulling away again for this event. And so you and I feel like are very aligned on not wanting to commit to weekly things if we can help it.
Yes. And I would say Elisha at this point in our life has more consistent commitments than I do. That's been pretty consistent throughout our marriage. That might change if we start going to a homeschool co-op or something like that. But I don't really commit to things monthly, weekly, if I can help it, just because I'm not super social that way. But if you're like a super social butterfly and your husband's not, that's going to be like an ongoing thing. So finding those things that you can do weekly to get out and socialize, you might have to compromise on how many things you do together. And I'm sure if there's something you want to do monthly or something with your spouse, as this gal mentioned, she would love to do things with her husband. I'm sure that would be a bonding activity in a way that he could love you, but you're going to need to be very selective when you're pulling that card. So let him know, hey, I love to socialize. It would really mean a lot if I could do one of my favorite things with you. Would you be willing to do this with me? But I would set your expectation of you married someone, remember who you brought home. You married someone who's never going to be as social as you are. And so they aren't going to be able to commit at such a high pace. And so just find things that really fit you and your social excitement, and then be filled and just come home and hang out with your husband, and don't be forcing him to keep to your pace, because I think that would be very fatiguing and very overwhelming. for a husband who wants to love you, but he's just going to start saying no to everything because it just seems like there's always another opportunity. I mean, at least that's what I would start doing.
And that's, again, I think that you and I are related to people that are extroverted. And I don't think, I don't know if there's like a test for that, if it's like, how do you even measure on that scale? But I don't think either one of us would call ourselves extroverted.
We both took personality tests when we were dating, and we both said we were extroverted. And then we got married, and now we both think we're introverted. So
yeah, we like have no desire to see anybody else. It's like, well, I'm married. Like, who else is there to see? Like, I've got, yeah. This was the point of socialization before.
Marriage.
Was to, like, find my wife.
I had no clue. That was the end goal. And then I came home with my husband and never wanted to leave again. But there has been a season in our marriage. You mentioned here, your husband doesn't approve of some of your girlfriends. Mm-hmm. So let's like segue into that a little bit, because we have had experience with this where I, in my jealousy as a new wife over Elisha, really disapproved of his friendships that he came into marriage with. Now, the Lord has had a beautiful process of maturation for me and maturation in our marriage. And we are actually very, very close with those friends that I really struggled with when we first got married. So the Lord has really blessed that. But for whatever reason, I just was uncomfortable. And Elisha really blessed me by just yielding to my comfort level, even though it was misplaced in a lot of ways. So I wasn't affirming of these friendships that he had for reasons that weren't, like, looking back, I'm like, okay, well, those weren't justifiable, but it's still how I felt in the time. And he was so gracious to still value my feelings. We aren't big fans of the whole feeling culture that we live in right now, but there is an element of marriage where when you care about someone's emotions, they feel safer and more vulnerable with you. And it's something that I really, really appreciated.
Oh, well, thanks for saying that, honestly, because I think that was challenging for me. And I don't think it was a long time, maybe a year.
It was probably about a year.
A year of our marriage. And it was hard for me, but I say that, but it was hard for me, but it wasn't because of how much how stoked I was to be married and to be with you. And so, did it feel like a sacrifice? Yeah, I do remember there being like very vivid thoughts of like, oh, okay, I didn't realize this was going to be a part of my life that was now, I guess, put, eliminated or put on hold or what have you. And then being like, okay, well, am I still stoked about being married? Absolutely. Does that make sense? So it's never like I don't even think there was ever a begrudging attitude towards any of the feelings you had towards those relationships, yet it still was a bit of a bummer for me. And so it meant a lot to me as you, in whatever terms you want to put it, found yourself being very, not just okay, but supportive of those friendships. And I do think I really
value them now.
And I think it is easy in a lot of ways to like retroactively see why that was a challenge. It's like you came straight from your family's house, not having a ton of like friends that were just your friends.
I've just never had a ton of friends in general. I mean, I have the most friends I've ever had now, but I'm usually like I lived in a house full of girls. It was like my mom and my sisters, and I had 2 or 3 really good friends. But I didn't have a lot of local friends, probably due to moving a lot. All my friends were in different locations. So I never had like that girl pack where it was like we were all going to the coffee shop or we were all going rock climbing or stuff like that. Yeah. So anyways.
Yeah. And so anyway, I don't know. Thanks for saying that. And I do think, again, I'm not saying I like, oh yeah, I crushed that and I laid my life down for my wife as Christ.
You did.
I know. I obviously was still the winner, by being married to you. I always felt like that. Because I always was.
It came with perks. Okay, being married to me came with perks.
I'll say, yeah.
But you would pay for it heavily.
No, and again, I can't think of any scenarios, but I would hope I would do the same. For you, when it was like, okay, or vice versa, basically, where it's like we value you and I, the question of valuing our marriage over like other relationships or friendships was never a question.
Yeah, that's just like not a question. Like we're willing to not have contact with anybody for the sake of our spouse.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't want that. Like we don't want hurt feelings with friends or with other family members, but we do view marriage as being one of those things where it's like, well, I know who I'm siding with, like I'm definitely on the side of my spouse. And so I think we've always had that mindset.
Yeah. So I would say, if your husband doesn't approve of your friends, then I don't know if you've have you asked him? I would encourage you to just ask him why and be like, okay, these are the friends you don't like me hanging out with. You don't approve of. Why is that? Is it because you feel like they're rubbing off on me? Do you, in ways that you don't appreciate? Do you feel like, you become like the 5 people you hang around most? What are the areas of these gals that you don't want me becoming like? Is it their attitudes? Is it, the way they carry themselves? Is it their view on marriage or family? Like your husband has a reason for not approving of these girls. And so I would just, try to get yourself in a place where you don't have to be defensive of this and have an open hand to his opinion. And I think that Elisha really did a good job of this because, I had my reasons in my mind why I was not comfortable with these friendships at the time. And even though a lot of it was actually just rooted in insecurity, he heard me out and I felt understood by him, where even if he didn't think the same thing, he's like, okay, I can see how you think that. And if they were actually unhealthy friendships, then maybe this is your husband being really wise. He has an outsider's opinion. Maybe these are friends from high school or you've just grown up with them. And so you can't see the things that he can see that are unhealthy in the friendship. Yeah. And so I would really be open to the wisdom of your husband too. And maybe some of these friendships are not serving you or serving your marriage and they actually need to go. So I would be really, really wary of continuing on in friendships that are not healthy for your marriage in any way. It's just prioritize your marriage. Maybe you'll come back to those friendships when your husband sees you honoring him and that maybe you need to take a step back. But maybe you won't, because when you get a little bit removed, you're going to be able to see what he was able to see.
What's crazy is that, like you said, that the friends might not even be the problem, but the friendships can be a problem for your marriage. And so prioritizing your marriage over the friendships, because you even think of our scenario, you're like, okay, the friends weren't the problem, but the friendship or me wanting to spend time was a problem for our marriage.
Yeah, so that was probably more the problem for our marriage.
So for that season, it's like, well, that obviously needs to not be. Like our marriage is prioritized. Those are put on hold or whatever you want to say about them.
Like one of the biggest beefs I had when we were first married was a lot of these friend hangout times were guys only. And I'm like newly married and just sitting at my apartment thinking that, I thought I was going to get married and just spend 24/7 with Elisha. So yeah, I was that wasn't healthy on my end, but that was really hard for me. So it wasn't like him going out and having a good time was bad or they were doing bad things or anything like that. It was a good time. But just me sitting at home alone wasn't something that was healthy for our marriage. And for me, who's like a quality time person and stuff like that, I felt like someone else was getting quality time with my husband and I wasn't.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and I bet that happens a lot in marriages when you have past friendships and then say, like, for instance, my friends, and then they almost actually all of them, I think, were married, or almost all of them were married. And so then I was friends with them when they were married. And so I was friends with their wives via that relationship. And then you come in and you're kind of like, okay, well, how do I fit in?
That time I didn't like go hang out with the wives or anything.
Yes, exactly. It's like, so how do I work myself into the relationship with the wives here? And you've got this history with these friends. And also that's the other thing too, is it's like you were friends with these guys when you were dating that other person or these other people, and you talk to them about these other girls, and so where do I fit in? Like there's a point where you kind of want to just like have new friends with just you. It's like, can we just go meet friends with just you and I? And I think there is probably something helpful to that or healthy. It's kind of fun. Where it was a
good season for us when we really poured into friendships that you and I started together.
Yes.
And again, you were just really patient, and now, I mean, again, these are some of our closest friends, and I'm really blessed by the wives. I'm really blessed by the husbands in Elisha's life, and really grateful that our kids can grow up together. So the Lord's worked in all of it. And just remember, like, marriage is a lifetime. And so often our timelines can be so short. And so just have that long-term vision. Like, you just want your husband to be on your team, or you want your wife to be on your team, know that you have their back. And then down the road, you might be surprised at how comfortable they are with you doing things that they weren't before there was that trust there, and before you were established as a couple in the same way. So
yeah, I agree. And it's interesting that this lady brings up her husband disapproving of her friendships, because it seems to me like it's usually the other way around. Like, it seems like it's more common that the wives are disapproving of the husband's friendships. But I would say something that is more common is husbands disapproving of a wife's like social media friends, like social media intake, and that being one of those things that like husbands maybe don't have the vernacular or the reasons to say their frustration with, like, okay, like what you want for our life is being heavily influenced by these people that I don't know, I don't respect, their opinion's not helpful to our family or to our marriage. And I do think that element of social input, that social media input, or that influence really needs to be considered when it comes to marriage. And that is something that's come up in our marriage, where it's like, who are you listening to? Like, who are your friends, so to speak, or your influences online? Because all of a sudden, everything you want for our life seems a little bit different than what we were talking about, a year ago.
Yes, that is definitely happened. Right.
And getting on the same page there and being aware of those voices.
Yeah. Here, this gal asks, should we only have common friends, like friends in common? And I mean, this is just my personal preference. Like, we have no Bible verse to back this up. But I don't think so. I mean, I think anything that you can have in common as a couple is a bonding agent. So it's fantastic if you guys can get along with the same couple, and, we've gone camping with friends together, or visiting friends, having friends over for dinner. When everybody in the family benefits, it's just like win, 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 win. So I would encourage that. But Elisha has some friends that I don't know their wives, I don't know their families. He's met them out at, jujitsu, or at some father-son thing he's gone to, or a camp he's gone to, or something. And so they're just kind of outside of our sphere, but he interacts with them. Your husband might have friends professionally at work or something like that. And so we have those like tangent friendships, but I think any type of friendship you can have together is a big win.
Yeah, I think it is ideal when you're friends together, but then I think an easy no is friends of the opposite sex, like in any of those scenarios.
I'm literally never any okay for that.
Yeah, and that's never been a thing in our marriage. And I know that is a thing for some marriages, and I just do not think it's helpful or healthy. It just should not be a thing. But it's funny because even when you brought up, me having some friendships, and then you having some mom friends that, like, I don't know really from Adam, or I don't know their husbands, but you were a part of a homeschool, group with them for a bit, or you went to a ladies' Bible study with them for a bit. It's one of those things where I think of you coming back from those Bible studies and explaining somebody to me and being like, man, I don't know who you're talking about, or I don't know who they are. And you're trying to explain them to me. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever met them. And there's nothing wrong with it, but it is just so much more ideal when you have friends in common, I think, and you're able to meet people together, to grow together, to have some context with one another.
Yeah. I mean, Elisha does his father-son things, which have kind of, one was at a church that we didn't go to, and then we've had some of the families from that church to our home, which has been a big blessing. And then a lot of them go to our home group, where we all go as couples and families. And so, but like, we don't really do guys' Bible studies, girls' Bible studies, stuff like that super consistently. And I think it's because we just love the win-win of being able to get together all together. And that's not to say I don't do things with girls and Elisha doesn't do things with guys. That is healthy, and there's a place for that. But we aren't pursuing those opportunities so much, I guess. Yeah. If we're going to put time and effort into building friendships, we would prefer it be more on a family basis.
Yeah, exactly. I think family is a good distinction because it's not even just
No.
we're not even just considering the spouses. We're definitely considering their kids.
There are some families we have specifically sought out to become friends with because they're children.
Yes.
We're like, they have incredible children. One, we would love to get to know the parents, but then two, we want our kids to hang out.
Yes.
So we have the families over.
Yeah, and so that's becoming more and more of a factor for us, and I think it's a good thing to consider as parents. And if you do respect or if you do appreciate the way that children behave and what their character appears to be, well, then odds are you're probably going to respect their parents.
Oh, yeah,
and
and appreciate them and learn from them.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is something, too, though, for several of the friendships that Elisha has made outside of our regular circle, then we do have that family over, because as that friendship has become more and more important in his life, or likewise with me, if a girlfriend has become more and more important in my life, then we want to introduce each other as friends. And so there is context for that relationship, and we can be blessed together. And so that's just one way to get in your spouse's get closer to them in this friendship and know who they're talking about and who they're referencing and who their family is. If they really value a person, then being like, oh, let's have them over for dinner. Let's all get to know this person. So maybe it's, a coworker or something like that, but having them over just gives you more context for your spouse's life. And we want that in any way that we can.
Yeah. And, even backing up to like one of the first things we said around friendship, and that is doing something for the sake of your spouse. What's bizarre is that there were a handful of relationships, friendships, early after moving here to North Idaho that you were far more excited about, you wanted to pursue, and I was being the like husband dragging his feet, like, okay, who is it? Who are we having over for dinner? Or where are we going? How'd you meet these people? And really not hitting it off. I would say genuinely not hitting it off with the husbands or with the guys for the first handful of times that we are interacting. And I say that it's not like I was miserable. There was I respected these guys from the get, and they were admirable, but it's not like we had this bond or this, this kindred spirit connection. And it's funny because here we are years later, and I'm like, oh man, I love hanging out with those guys. Like they are genuine friends. It's like soul filling times when I'm with them. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's more of a guy dynamic anyways. Just guys like being a little bit more, standoffish and being like, I don't know, I got my boys, like I don't need any more new friends. And yet I'm humbled because I had a little bit of that attitude with some of these relationships you wanted to pursue. And here I am years later, and I'm like, oh man, thank the Lord for these men that I get to call friends. Now,
again, some really, really close friendships.
Yeah.
That just kind of started off like not super hitting it off one way or the other for Elisha or myself. I think of it kind of, as you're speaking of this, is like arranged marriages. It's like when you marry on the basis of fact over feeling, and you can check all the boxes, then you can respect the person and fall in love with them for the long term. And obviously, whatever.
Well, keep it going. Yeah, I like this.
But I think of that when it comes to these friendships, is we check all these boxes on paper, like, okay, we want to learn from them, we respect them, we admire them, they love the Lord, we want to become more like them in the way that they're disciplined, or in the way that they're pursuing the Lord, the way they're pursuing each other, the way they're raising their kids. And so even if the chemistry's not there right off the bat, we continue putting ourselves around these people. And I would say the majority of the friends that we have made since becoming a couple have been from us, not actually writing a checklist on paper, but essentially talking out a checklist and being like, we want to be around these people.
No doubt.
And a lot of our close friends that we now do have a lot of, chemistry and fun hangout experiences with started that way, with us just admiring them.
No doubt. It's actually bizarre how you bringing up the arranged marriage scenario. And again, we're not here to like advocate arranged marriages, but I think statistically they are far more successful than non-arranged marriages. And I think there's a reason for that. It's like we all know that the feelings are fleeting, and what we perceive as being love, this feeling, like, well, that can come and go. It's like odds are that's probably going to be gone next year. And so what are the what are the principles or the characteristics or the values that you care about that you are marrying, and obviously you want the romantic and the feelings and all those things. But with friendships, I know I'm prone to being like, oh, I didn't hit it off, or I didn't like his personality, or we didn't really get each other's humor, or like he had this quirk that kind of rubbed me wrong, and being like, well, there's no hope there. And so you and I early on, I think in our marriage, I don't know, probably just because of like some goals we had in our life, where we would see couples or we would see people and we're like, oh, we want to be around them for what it appears their marriage is, the way their children behave and look up to them. Even with like more material things, like they are successful financially. Like we got married and we were broke, and we're like, we want to be not broke. And we know that you become more like the common denominator of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
We would quote that a lot to ourselves.
Yes. And it's like, okay, well, we didn't really know how to become not broke. And so we wanted to be around people
that were not broke so we could learn from them.
Yeah. That we're like, okay, these people seem to be crushing it in various areas financially. We want to be around them.
Yeah. How do they manage their money? What materialistic things do they say no to?
Yes.
What kind of mindsets do they have around money and giving? And yeah, a lot of education there by good friends who were so gracious to encourage us in these ways.
Yes. And so early on, those friendships were not they weren't those carefree friendships of like staying up until 2 a.m, laughing and, sharing your heart with one another and crying and saying, they weren't those friendships at all. And, we don't actually have any friendships like that.
I was going to say, wow, that is a mess, Elisha.
Well, whatever people picture with like those kindred spirits,
yeah.
like you can just talk into the wee hours of the morning, and never get tired of being around each other. But most of those friendships have become that, where it's like you truly are, you just love hanging out, and you can get together at the park, you can go out to dinner, you can hang out with one another, and it is a true carefree friendship. But they didn't start out that way.
Yeah, so another question that we've actually got asked quite a few times, and it's in here too, how do you navigate non-Christian friends? Or do you have friends that are unbelievers? How do you navigate that? And I think we have, so Elisha and I grew up in Christian circles. So it wasn't like we had friends that were unbelievers that we were super, super close with, and then we became saved. And now it's like, okay, we have this friend that we're bosom companions with, and now we're on totally different wavelengths with our faith. So that is not our experience. We both had non-Christian friends growing up, but at least for me, they were more acquaintances. Like they were on our volleyball team, or like I had fun with them. They were cool, but they weren't those super close friendships, because I knew that like at the end of the day, we're starting from a totally different foundation and building our lives completely different because of those beliefs. I don't know what you would say for you.
Yeah, I think very similar. Just growing up playing basketball and then going to fiddle contests and fiddle camps. Sure, I had a lot of friends or acquaintances through those things, through basketball and through music, but there was always a disconnect when it came to like how close were you, or were you, again, kindred spirits? There was an element of that not going.
You can only go so deep when you just have a completely different worldview, and so that has been our experience. I would say that's continued into adulthood as well, and our marriage. We aren't actively seeking out friendships that are non-believing friendships. We do seek out people for ministry, and we would love to input and encourage.
Evangelize.
But these aren't going to be people that we want to be inputted by.
Right.
And this has also come down to mentors as well, because there's a lot of mentors. You mentioned the financial space, or there's other spaces that we put ourselves under and realize, what, this actually isn't healthy, because we have completely different foundations and worldviews and hierarchy when it comes to
life.
Value systems in life. And our lives are just way too different to be sitting under this person because our views are starting to conform.
Yes.
And it's an unhealthy place to be. None of us are in such a strong position that we are incapable of being compromised by a friendship.
Right.
And someone we value and respect that does not share our same belief system.
Yeah. And it is crazy, because we went through seasons growing up where, I think those two scenarios through basketball, because me and all my siblings played played basketball. And so obviously you formed friendships. There would be team dinners. You'd form just individual friendships. They'd come over and you'd whatever, shoot together or do various workouts together. And then even on a more consistent scale, music was that way too, where we were meeting people at fiddle competitions, and then because they didn't live in our town, they would travel through and they'd stay at our house, or we would see them when we went through their town. And I think my parents were really discerning on when those friendships were becoming when we were becoming too influenced by those friendships. It's like, my parents are such ministers. They have, they're evangelists. They want people to know Christ and see the love of Christ, and they open up their home to a lot of unsaved people. But at the same time, and I think this is incumbent upon all of us parents as Christians, like, yes, minister to people, but then be the watchdogs of your own home, of your children, of the thoughts of your, like, how is your philosophy being shaped by these outsiders, by these non-believers? Because it is a two-way street. And that is, I think my parents were always so keen to that. And, there are coming times where, because our family had a big enough home, a lot of these broke musicians would want to do house concerts at our home. And so we would say, sure. And it was always an exchange where they would teach all of us kids, we benefited from it.
It's kind of like the nomadic traveling musician thing.
And,
I still wanted to be one for a while.
Yeah. And we'd promote their concert, and we'd get 75 people into our house for these house concerts. And it was all great. And then all of a sudden it wasn't, where it's kind of like, well, we hadn't met this bass. Who's this guy? And then all of a sudden it's like one of them's coming with their girlfriend, and they're like, you're doing the sleeping arrangements. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, this is getting a little bit more outside of our control and way beyond our value system. Time to put a halt to this, or be a little bit more, I guess, stringent on what we're allowing with these friendships and these influences. And so yeah, I do think as much as you want to be evangelists and you want to be giving and ministering to people, first and foremost, you got to protect your home. You got to protect your own mind, your philosophies, your children's thoughts and their worldview.
I go back to that. You become like the 5 people you spend the most time around. So if those are godly Christian friends who truly build you up, then you're in a pretty safe place to be able to reach out and minister to people. But if you're in a vulnerable position where, 3 of your best friends from high school don't share your same belief system, and then, you don't really hang out with too many other people, maybe it's social media or something influencing you, then that's not a great time to be encouraging that type of friendship. You just aren't in a very strong place, just statistically. And so that's something that we just want to be really wise when it comes to. So we're going to wrap this up. We were going to keep it short,
Yeah, we're pretty good.
As we usually don't. But we kind of addressed a few of these things. What do you do for your children's friendships? I would say primarily we have families over. That's how we have friends for our kids. They play for a long time in the freezing snow after church. They love that. They play at home group. Do you organize play dates or not? Every once in a while. Right now, we're honestly so social with our church. We don't organize a ton outside of the birthday parties that are already going on, or the hikes that are already going on, or, there's just like a new activity every week, it seems like.
Yeah. The socialization is not, there's no deficiency, at least according to my standards or
compared to how we
preferences.
grew up, we're like, our kids are like socialites. We need to chill out.
Yeah, that's the thing. Exactly.
Activities.
Growing up, it's like we went to church and you'd see friends there. I'm talking about when I was a kid, like from my earliest memories, probably until I was like 13, so that chunk of life. And I'd see friends at church, and then we would go to piano lessons on Tuesday mornings. And I would see my friend got done with his piano lesson right before my piano lesson, and I'd see him then. And we'd like slap fives and like give stickers to each other that we had collected and trade them. And that was it. Like that was the total socialization.
Like I'd live for Sunday. We never did consistent weekly things. So anyways, yeah, our kiddos they have so much fun though. They love their friends.
Yeah. I do too.
We are very, very blessed by the kids that our kids get to hang around. So anyways, that's it for this episode.
Talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.